I call this meeting of the Williamsburg-James City County School Board to order. May I please have a motion to certify closed session?
I certify that to the best of each member's knowledge, the Williamsburg-James City County School Board, while in closed session, discuss only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements as stated in Virginia law, and that only such public matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed session meeting were heard, discussed, or considered.
Thank you, Ms. Ownby. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. Ms. Souza, will you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Taylor?
Aye.
Mrs. Young?
Aye.
Dr. Beers?
Aye.
Ms. Hummel?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Ownby?
Aye.
Ms. Cook?
Aye, the motion passes. Ms. Souza, will you please take the roll call?
Dr. Beers?
Here.
Ms. Hummel?
Here.
Mr. Kelly?
Here.
Ms. Ownby?
Here.
Mrs. Taylor?
Here.
Mrs. Young?
Here.
Ms. Cook?
Here. Thank you. Now may I please have a motion to approve the agenda?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
As
Can I have a second?
presented.
Thank you. I was like waiting for the, can I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Souza, will you call the roll, please?
Ms. Hummel?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Ownby?
Aye.
Mrs. Taylor?
Aye.
Mrs. Young?
Aye.
Dr. Beers?
Aye.
Ms. Cook?
Aye. All right, the agenda is approved. That brings us to announcements and superintendent's report. Dr. Herron?
Good evening, Madam Chair. I'm pleased to announce that Matoka Elementary recently raised over $9,000 through their Jump Rope for Heart event. The school donated the money to the American Heart Association for life-saving scientific research and critical education efforts. Our school communities donate to many worthy causes each year, and I'd like to commend students, staff, and faculty who support these organizations. As you are aware, students in WJCC's Honour Programme complete a culminating project to meet graduation requirements. Recently, one of our Honours Programme students decided she wanted to combine her love of art and STEM by producing portraits of several of the women who played significant roles at NASA. Jamestown High School student Marie Helena Peters was profiled in the WI Daily for her project, and her artwork was recently displayed at the Williamsburg Art Gallery. Photos of a few of her portraits are included in the news story, and we shared the link through a tweet today. I highly recommend that we take a look at her incredible work. Congratulations to Claire Bird Baker's Rachel Samuels for being named the Williamsburg Area Reading Council's Liz Beckhouse Reader Teacher of the Year for 2017-18. Reading is a vital part of every student's education and success, and specialists like Ms. Samuels help our schools meet the specific literacy needs of students. Congratulations. And finally, I encourage every member of our community to consider attending one of our high school musicals. Jamestown will perform Big Fish, Lafayette will perform Mary Poppins, and Warhill will perform Tarzan. If you attend, you will not be disappointed. Our students, under the guidance of our excellent drama and music teachers, put on shows that really highlight their amazing talents. For more information, visit the school or division website calendars. Those are all of the announcements I have this evening, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Herron. I'm going to put you on the spot, though, and ask you to talk for just a second about the Digital School District Survey Awards program. Can you?
Yes, at our next meeting, we will be presented the Digital School Survey Award. Our technology department filled out a survey of all of the great work we're doing in technology, and we received that award at the National School Board Conference last weekend.
Right now that we get to say that twice now, so thank you.
That's correct.
Yeah, sorry. Are there any other announcements? No? Okay, thank you. That brings us to citizen comments. How many cards do we have?
One.
Okay, great. Ms. Hummel?
Okay, this is the time when citizens who have submitted speaker cards are invited to address the board. Speakers are asked to come to the podium when their names are called, state their name for the record, and direct their comments to the chair of the board. Each speaker is allocated 3 minutes. Time cannot be yielded to another speaker. Personnel matters are not discussed in open school board meetings, and we ask that you refrain from making reference to specific individuals. The board is interested in hearing all comments fully and requests that citizens refrain from verbal outbursts, applause, or any other type of demonstration. Although the board does not respond to comments at this time, please know that we are listening and we appreciate your time. Thank you for adhering to these guidelines. Madam Chair, my directions are concluded.
Thank you, Ms. Humble. Ms. Zumby?
Sandra Magda.
Good evening. It's been a while. As I sit here, I look around, I'm not as bitter as I have been coming up here. At the start of the school year, you know that our case against WJCC was dismissed. And I was actually happy about that. It was draining the life out of our entire family. 3 weeks later, I was diagnosed with cancer. So I have to look at that as a blessing in disguise because I was taking quite a lot of energy to deal with a bullying situation that should never have occurred. And here I am this many months later, 32 emails later, parents still complaining. Nothing's changed. For 2.5 years, our family fought, and all we asked for was to put the kids first. 32 emails, 32 different families. Kids being bullied, IEPs not being followed, lunch being withheld. We met with 10 families last month and had a meeting, and they all filled out OCR paperwork. I don't understand why the kids are not first. Our family spends $40,000 a year to send our kids to private school. And all we wanted to do was come back to WJCC because we love the teachers here. But we can't do that yet because the schools are still not safe. 2 incidences of weapons being taken away from students. I don't know when it's going to change. I don't know if my kids are safe going on any campus within WJCC. And the kids and these families deserve better, and it's actually your responsibility. That's what you're elected to do. It's your responsibility to make schools safe, to make sure the kids are getting the education that they deserve. And if you were to ask at least 32 families in this district, they would say that you were an embarrassment to this community. And that breaks my heart because I have an 11-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a soon-to-be 8-year-old that still miss going to schools here, and that we would like to be able to send them back at some point. And all we want is to be able to put my kids on a bus and know that when they arrived at school that they were going to be safe. But I pay $40,000 a year for that comfort. And I would hope that you would start listening to the families when they come to you, and I've directed them to you. I have a health issue. I don't have time to, well, I do have time now, to spend emailing people. And I just want you guys to listen to the members of the community and their kids. They're suffering. And it's your job to make that better. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Magda. Okay. The next item on the agenda is Local Special Education Plan, Title 6B Flow Through, I think. Is that right? Flow Through? Yeah, sorry, it just says flow. I think it was Flow Through, yeah. So anyway, Dr. Herron?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Annually, we present the Special Education Plan when we apply for federal funds under Title 6B of Individuals with Disability Education Act. And this evening, Dr. Burrow is here to take us through that application. Thank you, Dr. Burrow.
Thank you. Greetings, Madam Chair Cook, members of the board, and Dr. Herron. I bring you greetings from the Department of Special Education, and I'm honored to be here to present the 2018-19 Local Special Education Annual Plan. The application pertaining to this plan is a regulatory requirement under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act of 2004, and the funds provided through this plan are solely for the purposes of providing special education and related services to children with disabilities. The amount of federal funds allocated to the school divisions, it is formula driven, and it takes into consideration historical funding, the total school enrollment, and the poverty level of a locality. As required by the guidelines, this plan was shared with the members of the Special Education Advisory Committee on February 8th, 2018. Unfortunately, it was in my absence due to bronchitis, so Ms. Bourgeois presented that plan, so thank you, Ms. Bourgeois. Following submission to and approval by the Virginia Department of Education, this plan will take effect on July 1st, 2018, and it will run for 27 months. All funds allocated through this plan must be spent by September 30th of 2020. As I may have shared with you previously, there are two funding streams that are part of this plan. Section 611 pertains to our school-age students with disabilities in grades kindergarten through 12, and Section 619 is specific to our preschool students with disabilities. The proposed plan that I believe you have a copy of is based off of the award amount that we received in 2017-2018, and that's because the preliminary funding allocations from the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Special Ed Programs have not been released as of yet. Because the page numbers in the plan are repetitive, I will simply reference the heading. There are a couple of pretty pertinent provisions that I'd like to just draw your attention to and speak in a little bit of detail about. And the first one is the report on implementation of the 2016-2017 annual plan. And as is indicated in the plan, it indicates that all federal monies that were allocated in the 2016-2017 annual plan were used solely for the purposes of special education personnel salaries and benefits. On the following page is a provision called the maintenance of effort. So as a matter of federal regulation, the Virginia Department of Education has to ensure that all localities in the Commonwealth of Virginia meet this maintenance of effort obligation. This regulation requires that school divisions spend at least the same amount from at least one of the following sources, either through local funds, local plus state funds, local per capita or by student, and state plus local per capita for a current school year. So if you'll look at the page on maintenance of effort, we are posed to meet this obligation in two of the four requirements. The regulation requires that you meet it in at least one of the tests, and for the previous years, we've met it in all four of the tests. Again, this is a projected estimate based on where we will be for 2018-2019, but our current estimates tell us that we will meet this requirement in two of the four tests. The other regulation that I want to draw your attention to is called proportionate set-aside. And simply put, the law requires that each local education agency must spend a proportionate amount of federal funds on providing special education and related services to students with disabilities who are parentally placed in private schools or homeschooled. As you'll see in the plan, the direct service that we provide our parentally placed or homeschooled students with disabilities is speech services. All other services are consultative. So this set-aside amount, which is $52,535.62, is based off of the 38 students who fit in this criteria. And the per pupil allocation for these students is $1,193. Let's see. The 2018-2019 annual plan proposes to utilize grant funds pretty much as we have historically done in the past several years, expressly for salaries and benefits of special education personnel for the following positions. Section 611, which is our K-12 pot of funds, $2,030,171 is allocated for 20 special education teachers, 5 speech language pathologists, 6 special education paraprofessionals, a part-time parent resource coordinator, and 0.2 of the full-time K-8 literacy coordinator's position. That is a full-time position, but funds from this plan will cover 0.2% of her salary. Section 619, which is our preschool funding source, covers just a portion of the nurse's salary from the Needs Center. I would be remiss if I didn't share with you just a more global context of funding for special education and what it looks like in terms of its impact in our locality. I mentioned that the plan covers 20 special education teachers. We currently have 113 and a half special ed teachers. So the 20 that are covered under this annual plan's funding source, the other 93.5 are covered by local funds. The special education teacher assistants, 6 are covered under the 6B grant. The remaining 106 are covered by local funds. We have 22 speech and language pathologists in our division. 5 are covered by 6B. The remaining 17 are covered by local funds. So when I take into account, just to give you a big picture in terms of numbers, the proposed federal share of funding in those two pockets comes to $2,030,171. That's about 9% of the overall cost of special ed. The estimated state share based off of our maintenance of effort comes to $4.5 million. That's about 21%. And then the estimated local share, which is $15 million, that's 69.8%. So that just kind of paints a picture of where we stand. And again, as I've said before, the locality really does assume the lion's share of funding special education here in our division and probably in many other localities as well. With regard to this particular award, however, we have not received our preliminary figures. So again, we base it off of the amount we got last year. We will typically get a preliminary amount in July, and then we'll get a final amount in October. So the hope is that if that funding, if that number comes in and is a little shy of what we were anticipating, then again, it becomes incumbent upon the locality to kick in the funding for that. So we're hopeful that it remains consistent. We try to be very conservative. We haven't added positions to this because we just never know which way, you know, if it comes in low, then that becomes a financial burden to the locality. So are there any questions at this time?
Dr. Burrow? Zombie?
Historically, has the federal amount matched our projections? Has there ever been a time that it has come in lower than we had anticipated in like recent history?
For the past 3 years, for 15-16, it came in at $1.9 million for the 611, the K-12 pot, and then a $21,000 for 619. And then the following year, there was about a $20,000 difference. It came in at $1,918,300. The preschool amount stayed the same. Actually, the preschool amount increased by $25, but the bigger pot was decreased by about $20,000. So I think that's their idea of balance, but that's the way the numbers came in. And then in 2017-18, we got an increase, $2,030,171. So I don't have the projections for what we are anticipated to get for 18-19, but hopefully it will be consistent with what we've previously gotten. Welcome.
Mrs. Young?
I noticed on the proposal here, if you go to page number 14, it talks about the principal of the Bright Beginnings preschool program. Is that position, is that paid for separately out of different funds?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
ma'am.
That's what I wanted to know.
Anything else? Okay. Dr. Burrow, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Okay. The next item is 6.02, the Carl D. Perkins Grant. Dr. Herron?
Madam Chair, annually we bring to you the local plan and budget for career and technical education, the Carl D. Perkins Grant. And this evening, Dr. Carroll is here to present the grant to you. Thank you, Dr. Carroll.
Madam Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Herron. Tonight I will present the WJCC Carl D. Perkins Career and Technical Education Local Plan for 2018-19. This federal grant provides funding under the Career and Technical Education Improvement Act of 2006, and its purpose is to support and promote career and technical education programs. Thank you. To receive Perkins funds, each eligible school division must develop and implement a local plan for career and technical education that includes specific information in the following 3 areas. 1, program and services. 2, required uses of funds. And 3, permissible uses of funds. Tonight, our presentation will highlight some of this information and a brief review of the 2016-17 data. You also have available for review the actual 2018-2019 Perkins Grant application, which includes the appropriate schedules and certifications of compliance with all statements of assurances and conditions. The Perkins Grant evaluates students' efforts based upon 13 performance standards. For 2016-2017, WJCC exceeded the Virginia agreed-upon performance levels for all performance standards with regard to all completers and special populations. And the 13 categories we couldn't get into one PowerPoint, so here's the first one. And here's the other half. They're all on one page for you on the fact sheet that you have in front of you. And we are very excited to report WJCC CTE students improved their performance in 11 of the 13 performance standards for the all completers categories and in 7 of the 8 special populations categories. The specific comparisons between school year 15-16 and 16-17 are included on the fact sheet provided to you. WJCC, most importantly, will report an improvement for the performance standard test takers passing credentialing test rate in the special populations. WJCC students improved from 77.65% to 91.96%, an increase of 14.3%. WJCC previously had not met this standard in this category for the past 3 consecutive years. So we're very happy with that improvement.
Where's that number?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 5th one down, Mr. Kelly.
Great check. Thank you.
You're welcome. Last year, WJCC students earned a total of 1,922 industry credentials in a wide variety of career clusters. This is an increase of 1,327 industry credentials from last year. Credentials were earned at either one of our 3 high schools or at the New Horizons Technical Center.
What was that number again? What was that increase? That's pretty incredible.
It was an increase of 1,327.
That's pretty.
So what drove
But
that?
what drove that? Yeah,
Yeah.
what-
For the class of 2017, that was one of the graduation requirements.
Gotcha. So we're going to see that
drove
number
it?
going.
That number is, if not to take us back to budget
you-
presentations, but that's why one of the line items for increased amount in industry certification testing was in the superintendent's budget.
So you'll have a lower percentage growth next year.
Can always hope that we maintain that growth, but most likely, if you're going to put a dollar on the table, I would take your side that the growth would not continue at that rate.
Put more than a
So
dollar
if you,
on the
if you
table.
pull that out, was there still growth?
Yes, I mean, I think we've got more students taking CTE
Okay.
classes, so.
Do we have the breakdown of the by credentials of one year versus the next? Is that, or is that, we have?
You do not have that. I can get that information
I
for
just
you
think
if you
it's-
would like it.
Yeah, I think that would be useful to me to know where the interest is and what the
The different
credentials are.
categories. Yep. Yeah. And for example, Mrs. Hummel, one of the ones, many of them are the same from last year, but mechatronics, again, is a program that we've talked about with TNCC and New Horizons have partnered, and I know we've tried to promote that with our students. So we had, I believe from the numbers I looked at today, 4 mechatronics. That wasn't there last year, so that's one of the areas. So we've got some different areas growing like that.
Dr. Carroll, I'm sure everyone around this table knows what mechatronics is, but for the viewing public, if you could please explain that, that'd be
I'm
lovely.
probably not the one to explain this. From my very crude understanding of it, Mr. Kelly's going to jump in and help me out, I'm sure. If you think back to the way an industry, the production line used to work, where if it broke down, people were specialized. So if the electronic component broke, you had to wait for the electrician to come fix your station. If the mechanical part broke, you had to wait for the mechanical person to come fix your station. Now with mechatronics, they're learning some of the different areas so that it's one person responding and quickly getting the line back to service.
Thank you.
It's not robotics, but it's similar to that. So it's the guy who goes and fixes the
So he's
the
more
automation
well-rounded.
on the automation on the line.
If it's not too difficult, when you're giving us that list of 1 year versus the next year, would it be possible for us to know whether it's the Butler campus or the Wood? Is that difficult to?
It shouldn't be because their programs are specifically
Yeah.
at the two different campuses,
That
so.
would be useful for me to, and then homes, like, is the WISE financial literacy, is that the one that's done out of?
It's done at all three
online?
high schools.
So that one would be like high school, whatever. That would be
Okay,
useful to me.
certainly. Would you just like a comparison with last year,
Yeah,
or?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
The WJCC 21st Century and Career Ready Advisory Committee serves to advise and assist in program planning, instructional recommendations, and student opportunities. As part of the Perkins Grant, members should represent all 10 of these identified areas. The members of this committee have reviewed the Perkins Grant prior to submission to the school board. WJCC students have the opportunity to participate in 6 different CTE program areas. They are business and information technology, family and consumer science, health and medical services, marketing, technology education, and trade and industrial education. Each year, the Perkins Grant asks the school division to submit a local career pathway plan of study in a selected career cluster. This career pathway plan of study can serve as a guide along with other career planning materials as learners continue on a career path. This plan of study is customized with WJCC course titles, appropriate high school graduation requirements, and likely college entrance requirements. This year, WJCC is updating its engineering technology pathway, which is found within the STEM career cluster. In addition to the identified coursework, WJCC students will continue to have the potential to engage in work-based learning experiences with local companies and organizations and earn approved industrial credentials. As we saw during the brief overview of data, performance standards are established for what is identified as special populations. This group includes economically disadvantaged, disabled, LEP, migrant, single parent, non-traditional, and displaced homemaker students. Listed are some of the supports WJCC provides these CTE students. As with other areas of instructional focus, we will continue to address the needs of ELLs in our CTE classrooms. In addition, the data identifies we should review how we recruit non-traditional students into these programs. Last year, 66 WJCC students took classes at New Horizons Technical Center. This participation determines the amount of Perkins funds WJCC contributes to New Horizons. And then under the provisions of the Perkins Act, the grant funds must be distributed by category. On this slide, you see the proposed budget expenditures for 2018-2019. And then our final slide.
Do you have a question now? I'm sorry.
I have a
sorry,
question.
Ms.
If
Young.
we can go back to the special populations
Yes, ma'am.
report. It says the number of non-traditional. What does that encompass? What are considered non-traditional?
It's, so for us in this area, it's students who are underrepresented traditionally, historically, in CTE programs.
Such as?
So for here, if you're looking at an engineering cluster, women. So that's how it's defined. So it's different for different career clusters. So if you were looking at nursing, it would be men.
And then on, oops, sorry.
Sure.
Jump in.
Yeah, Ms. Hummel.
Yep. On the previous slide,
This one?
no,
Nope.
the one that has the 66, that one,
Yes,
column
ma'am.
B. So, did that number go up or down from 2000, from the year before? Because I always thought we were like at 70 some.
I don't recall off the top of my head, but I can get you that.
I just am
I'd-
curious,
yeah.
for just the, do you happen to know serving on the board?
Call me out, will you?
I just wondered.
The number was higher.
I thought that,
Well,
but then I didn't know whether that included the governor's school kids. So I didn't,
70 number might include the governor's school
Governor's.
kids. I'm not sure, though.
We can get those
Okay.
numbers.
I can double check
absolutely.
that for you, because this number is specifically those for the CTE programs.
okay.
so two questions. So one, just to clarify again, back to the number 66. So that's just the CTE programs. That doesn't include the New Horizon program for students with significant disabilities and not GovSchool. So I think that's why the number is different. And then if you could go back to the special populations slide, yeah. I asked this question last year too, but again, just to clarify. So the number of disabled students, that number is higher than than the number of children who have IEPs. So does that include students who have 504s as well? Like, why is that number not 1,700? Because I thought that's how many students we have with disabilities in our division.
Might not be. Is it duplicated?
I double checked the definition of disabled with the
Yeah, I just think
Perkins
that it's
grant for
broader.
you.
I think maybe, I don't hate to call it Ms. Bourgeois, but I think you answered that last year. I don't know. Yes, if we could, because yes, because it's my understanding that we have,
That's
includes
most likely
504.
what it done. Yeah, I don't want to give you a definitive, so if you'll,
but just so we explain that, so that we have, because I know our funding partners have asked that question specifically, how many students with disabilities do we have? And we generally say it's 1,700, and this is a different number. So just,
Certainly clarify that and get you the information.
And then the number of non-traditional being, you said males or females versus, shouldn't that number, where's the 223 coming from when we only have 66 students that are, I guess I'm confused
Well,
about
it's-
this report, like in general. What does it mean?
it's also grades 7 through 12.
So 7 through 12 that are taking CTE classes, not all of which are at New Horizons, is that correct? Is that where there's this
It's
more than
also
66?
here, yes, at
Okay.
WJCC.
Okay, got it.
Are these, I'm still on this same slide, are these numbers here, are they unduplicated, are they discrete? Are some of the students in more than one or two categories?
Yes,
So-
a student could appear in multiple
Right.
categories.
So can we, because it seems like a large number, I guess what I'm trying to find out is how the number of economically disadvantaged kids, the ones who are disabled but not economically, I'd be curious about what that total sort of discrete number is that eliminates that duplication. Is that in other words, going through each one of those and saying, okay, we have 4,200 economically disadvantaged kids. We have a number of, we have 2,000 disabled. What are ones that, we toss out the ones that are also economically disadvantaged? Do you understand what I'm saying? And go down each one of these. So it ultimately, the discrete number, it might be, I don't know, 5,000, 6,000. I'm just curious about that because if you simply add those, that's a large number when you only have 11,000 students in the school district. Are we saying of 11,000 students, 4,200 are disadvantaged?
Economically disadvantaged.
So almost half of our students?
35%.
About a
35%,
third.
third.
Huh?
35%.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Okay, I just think, I'd like to know, and it means just fooling around with them, is which ones are English language learners that aren't in any of the other categories? Because we know we're gonna pick them up. If they're part of the disadvantage, they're gonna be part of the disadvantage. In other words, that real number, I'm just curious about that. Have to do anything. Well, that is a high percentage of economically disadvantaged kids in our community. It's huge.
I think we're sitting about 35% right now across our population.
Gone up.
That's correct,
Yes.
sir.
Year over year.
It's underreported.
Yes, at the upper levels, you're right. Mrs. Young, this is sort of your wheelhouse. You sit on this committee. I'm curious if you have anything to, say overall or.
New to the committee, but the thing that I'm looking for on this report is, and I think that's been addressed by Ms. Hummel about breakdown of from one year to the next, of how things are progressing, are more students enrolling in these classes, which I believe we've discussed that they are. But I would like more of a greater breakdown because my concern is I want kids to get out of high school and either have decided to go on to university, but not every kid wants to go to university, and we want those students to be work-ready, or at least at a position in their life where they've made some decisions and they're willing to go into a position either at the apprentice level or whatever the job requires. But I would like to see a greater breakdown, but thank you.
Dr. Carroll, you're on the last slide. Are you done, or was there anything else that you wanted to add?
I
We just kind of dove in. so.
The last slide just shows historically the funding that we've received from Perkins in the past, and then we're requesting for the 18-19 school year the same amount of funding that we've received this school year. So we submit the grant at the, once it's board approved at the end of this month, then that's the amount that we're hoping to receive.
If I might add, some of the numbers that compare from year to year in New Horizons, they're part of perhaps an update on CTE overall, but they're not part of the Perkins grant application, which just gives you a slice of what we do tonight that pertains just to the grant that needs to be approved.
I understand that. Madam Chair, can I just ask another question?
Sure.
So the $134,000 that we're requesting, is that, will most of that money be spent in supporting our in-division programs, or does this money go to New Horizons?
The only amount that goes, if you see on this slide here, Ms. Young, the $3,519.88 would go to
Oh, okay.
New Horizons. The rest would remain within WJCC.
Okay, thank you. I
You're
missed that.
welcome. That's okay.
Ms. Ownby?
Yes, Dr. Carroll, I know last year when I sat on the 21st Century Career Ready Committee, the committee was excited because there were lots of more applications, more WJCC students had applied to participate in programs at New Horizons. It was close to 100, if I recall correctly. And I just wondered how many of our students apply for admittance to one of their programs and then don't get in, because I know there's a waiting list for certain programs. And is that reflected in the 66, which is not as close to 100 as I thought it would be? Does that make sense?
I can answer that from just my experience as a high school principal. You have many students who apply. As you said, they may or may not get into their program, their first program of choice. And then between course registration and the fall, especially if we're looking at seniors who may need another graduation requirement, they may choose to opt out, even if they've been accepted, to stay on campus and take care of graduation requirements. But if you want me to follow up on last year's, I can talk to Mr. Johnson and get that information.
Yes, only because I know when the administrator from New Horizons was here and presented to us the last meeting or the meeting, I started down that road with that question, and I asked about room for expansion, but then didn't think to ask that follow-up question. I would like to know, do we have WJCC students that want to participate but don't, because there is a waiting list and they're seniors and then they can't get in? I would like to know how many want to, but what is the percentage that aren't able to access that?
We can certainly get that information from Mr. Johnson.
No, thanks.
Hummel? I'm sorry, then you, Dr. President.
I just wondered if this, I was looking for these under board docs, under Carl Perkins. Is it somewhere else that I don't know where, the electronic copies of these, where are they?
I believe the PowerPoint is up on board docs.
I can't, no.
It's not here.
Goes up tomorrow. It goes up tomorrow on this. We can certainly provide this for you as well.
And then this too?
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Beers, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
No, that's okay. Something I think is very encouraging is I'm looking at that, our school report card data for 2016, 2017, and I'm really impressed by the fact that students are picking up one or more credentials. The total number of credentials, it said 1,922, and then students earning one or more credentials, 1,492. I think that, to me, that is an indication of flexibility and also the realization that the more areas that you develop some skill in, the better your job opportunities are going to be. So I'd like to see that number go up too, just to encourage students to do that. So that's.
Anything else? Ms. Ownby?
Just to build on that and looking at the school report card data, so the occupational assessments passed, there's a huge amount of diversity in that. Can you speak to that? Like between the three high schools?
Disparity,
The
yeah.
disparity,
Or in WRS as well.
yeah.
Whatever that is.
So,
It just depends on I'll have to look at what the specific occupational assessments are. It depends on the course and the test that's given. Many of our CTE courses offer multiple industry credentialing tests, so that the teacher and the student choose. So I imagine that's part of the discrepancy.
So, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So back to this report card, at National School Boards Association conference, I attended a session about data where they really recommended using the state's reports. And so I'm excited to see just using that here. But I'm interested in two things about this report. First of all, when there's a wide degree of variance between the schools in certain columns, I'm curious what's driving that. Is it that the same number of students took the test and failed it, and then more people failed it, or whether it's just a different, interest at each school? I'd just like to understand what drives the big differences. And then also, I'd like to have, because I'm really not educated as much as I'd like to be about CTE, what these really are. Like, I don't know, for instance, the difference between an occupational assessment and an industry certification. I'm that. So maybe I need to serve on that committee next year, but because I'm that ignorant. But I'd like to understand what those are, like a little primer maybe, but,
Okay.
just so I know what that is. Yeah.
I just have a question on here on these occupational assessments. One of the things, do we give our high school students aptitude tests so that they start, I asked my little 6-year-old grandchild, do you like that? They already have started to make some decisions. No, I don't want to be a firefighter, et cetera. Or they do, but do we give an aptitude test for kids so that they start understanding that there's certain things they're better suited for?
We have those available to students. Not all students take advantage of that, and then that will also be one of the changes with Profile of a Virginia Graduate, as we're building more career readiness into expectations and curriculum in the future.
So these occupational assessments, what are they assessing?
I would.
Like if they're taking a welding class,
The occupational, again, off the top of my head, I would imagine it's more like the nursing or some of the health occupations, where a welding would be an industry certification.
You're right, okay.
Where would the financial literacy certification fall under? Which one of these categories?
On my head, so.
So, yeah.
Because that's a requirement for graduation, right? Everyone has to take that. Is that true?
Yes,
They,
Yep.
that's
okay.
correct.
So then everyone has to take that class. I'm assuming they have to pass it, which would mean they'd get a credential.
That would be the case, but students take it in different years. So it may not be in this year's data.
It might not be,
So you
okay.
may not have a full year in presented here, depending on when students take that
I would
particular
just like
class.
to see like where that falls, and then if you take that out, because I think of the financial literacy kind of in a different category than CTE. I just, in my mind, I don't categorize it as pure CTE. And so I just was wondering, when you take that out, what these numbers look like.
There's a lot of data that has not been presented before, and these additional couple of sheets that you've got tonight that Dr. Carroll's brought for your information. But it's interesting, when we look at data, it does bring more questions, but that's a good thing.
It's a
because
great thing, yeah.
It allows you
Great,
to
thank you.
understand and
Yeah.
more fully what's happening.
Yeah, good data
Thank
just
you.
leads to more questions, so
Oh,
thanks in
One more-
advance.
one more- I have
Yeah,
one more-
sorry.
I have
Yeah,
one more question. You know, Dr. Carroll, I'm looking at the Perkins Performance Standards fact sheet. And the very top one on the left, academic attainment, reading, English 11, 80% pass. Can you tell me how that's assessed? I don't think it means you can read on the 11th grade. What is that? What level
No,
you know?
It's
ahead.
those identified students who pass the English 11 SOL, the reading SOL.
Which may not actually be a true indication of what their actual reading level is. Because that's that is an issue with employers. You know, students pass SOL tests, and then when they're out in the field, they're only able to, they struggle more with material that's written, you know, beyond a 5th or 6th grade level. So I'm just,
Technical.
I'm
skill.
curious about that, yeah. But I'm glad, you know, I like seeing 80%. I mean, I think that's good, but that's really a critical area, to be able to process text that's used in their occupation. where they
we're
work.
much higher than 80%.
I'm looking at that.
That's the
Oh,
Virginia.
I'm sorry, yeah. Yeah, you're right. No, so that's good.
Yeah, it's good.
But as I said, it's not necessarily a true indication of the level of difficulty they can handle. That's okay.
Anything else? So, this is a really good opportunity to have a conversation about, you know, a little more broadly about CTE as opposed to the Carl Perkins. But, I mean, to your point, sharing this data, it's really interesting. Clearly, we're intrigued by it, and so we appreciate it and appreciate the opportunity to know more and learn about what we're doing.
And I hope the big takeaway is the improvements that have been made in the past year, and we'll continue to work on that.
Thank you for reminding us of that.
Thank you, Dr. Carroll.
Huh? What?
He's off the hot seat.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Carroll. That brings us to item 6.03, award a contract for invitation for bid number 18-12119, Jamestown High School HVAC system replacement. Dr. Herron.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is one of the bids that's coming before us as we start to get ready for construction over the summer. And Mr. Snipes is here to speak to several items tonight. Thank you, Mr. Snipes.
Good evening, School Board Chair, School Board members, Dr. Herron. As said, tonight I'm here to provide you information about the Jamestown High School HVAC replacement, which is a proposed FY19 CIP item. The design for this project was included in your FY18 CIP in the amount of $320,000. The current HVAC system is beyond its useful life. It was installed in 1997. The installation will take place over 2 summers. It will take place in 2018 and 2019. This is a placeholder agenda item. So at the time that this was written, we had not received the bids yet, and that will come forward at your next meeting, which is next week, on April 17th. The project does include the demo of piping and chillers and boilers and air handling units and rooftop units, and also the work associated with that. There is the budget amount, including design, is $5,900,000.
Any questions for Mr. Snipes on this one?
Is the work going to be scheduled over the summer? Is the work going to be scheduled over the
Yeah,
summer?
the work is scheduled over the summer, 2 phases, beginning this summer and next summer.
Will it affect anyone, I guess any sports that are going on with the gymnasium and?
Well, they will have the HVAC off, so they will not be able to use the building. I know the administrators are not going to be there this summer. We are planning to move them.
Wow.
I have a question. I notice, I don't usually read all of this, but I noticed that the automatic temperature controls will be provided by Trane. Do the contractors, do they make the decision as to what brand, what, the company that creates that material? Or do you get involved in that?
Not on an invitation for bid. We go out when the contractor designs it, and we go out for design last year, $320,000. That was to MJT, and they make a determination on the system that was be designed for us. That's why we contract with them to design it.
About that.
Anything else?
Because I noticed that that's actually specified in there.
Correct. We know the type of systems that we want based on
Gotcha.
what we've used
Okay.
in the past and based on what our HVAC mechanics are trained on.
Good.
Mr. Snipes, I have two questions for you. This is in the proposed, part of proposed FY19 budget. Did it make it into Mr. Porter's, okay, thank you. I know Ms. Barnes told us that, but I haven't retained that. And then also, I know it's past its useful life, but what's the data source to back that up? Was that a faithful?
That's a faithful glue,
Okay.
but it's also an industry standard, 20 years useful life on HVAC units.
So it was
It's
in-
also in our capital improvement process that we replace systems at 20 years.
Okay, so there's sort of three data points that justify it. Okay, great.
Also, that work order history is getting a little larger, and if our maintenance mechanics were here, they would tell you there's a lot of work going on with them.
So
to
what we're
maintain it.
experiencing.
It's one of our most inefficient systems.
Great, okay.
Some of us think the school's brand new. Right, Dr. Beers?
Okay. Then, if there are no more questions, we can move on to 6.04, award a contract for invitation for bid 18-12166 Clara Bird Baker Elementary School exterior masonry repairs.
Again, in 2010, we did some temporary repairs to Clara Bird Baker. At that time, there were some cracking and some joints that you could see in the walls. And so what we did was we had RRMM go out and look to tell us what it would take to repair the issues that were there. So they've given us, again, the information. They did the design, and we have put out an IFB that was due back on March 27th. And again, at your next meeting, you will get those results. Most of the scope of work really does include repointing or the voids, just filling in the cracks, but also to replace some steel lintels at the school where they anticipate water is getting in, which is causing some of that cracking. Again, this is a placeholder agenda item, and this was an FY18 CIP approved budget item in the amount of $1,311,000.
Questions? Ask the data question again. So where did we get justification for doing this? Was it in the Faithful and Gould report, or?
We've known about this issue for a while. That's why in 2010 there was a temporary repair done. I think we knew about this back in 2008, and so we've been trying to fix the issue, and this was part of that budget from then. So it's just been an ongoing issue that we've been looking at, pushing off based on estimates every year and based on the RRMM comes back and looks every year to tell us it can go another year, or no, you need to replace it. So it's been in there for a while. There's no industry standard, but if you go and look, you could see some cracking back in 2008.
Was it in the Faithful and Gould report, or no? Do you recall?
I do not recall if it
Okay.
was in that report.
All right, thank you. Anything else? All right. On to 6.05, middle school refresh laptop purchase. Dr. Herron, thank you, Mr. Snipes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As part of the 2018 budget, the school board included funds to refresh student laptops, and Mr. Landers is here to present this purchase request this evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Herron. This purchase request is part of our planned technology refresh for the middle school one-to-one laptops. The cost of this purchase is included in the board's approved fiscal year 18 budget in the Technology Cost Center. The total cost for this refresh of 600 laptops is $326,436, which does include the expanded warranty, additional damage protection, and the annual refurbishment for the life of the devices. And the purchase will make use of a state contract with Lenovo.
Any questions for Mr. Landers? Okay, thank you. That brings us to your next item, which is the middle school laptop protection service purchase.
Yes, ma'am. With this one, we're asking for approval of purchasing laptop repair and protection services from Lenovo. These services were originally purchased as part of the device cost through a third-party vendor. The division has since terminated its relationship with this vendor and has moved to a manufacturer direct relationship using that state contract direct with Lenovo. The services requested include warranty and accidental damage protection, which does include all parts and labor, as well as support for the annual refurbishment of the laptops. The purchase price of $116,640 will be covered through a refund that we received of $149,777 from the previous vendor. And it will provide coverage for 4,800 laptops that will remain in the division's inventory that still have 2 years of life cycle remaining.
So we've got 4,800 laptops in the middle school?
Actually, we have closer to, let's see, no, that includes additional laptops other than middle school. We do have some in the high school as well.
Okay, so because the title says middle school laptop protection services
Yeah,
purchase.
these particular, well, sorry, I might have misspoke on that one, but it is the one-to-one laptops that are both in the middle school and the high school. Exactly which ones are in which school, I would have to look that up on our inventory sheet.
We would just want to
we've
change.
already-
So we want to
We
change
just
that
wanna
agenda item.
change.
We already have them.
Yeah, we're just changing who the services are provided by.
Okay, so it's just changing the title there, so it doesn't say
Yes.
middle school only? And
Yes,
then,
ma'am.
And then I'm assuming the new laptops are not covered in this because they've got their own extended warranty, right? So this
Right,
is
the new
to-
the
this-
new laptops, that extended warranty service is already purchased direct with Lenovo.
Any other questions? Okay, so for that, for the next agenda, we'll
I'll change that
we'll
title.
change the middle school out.
Yes,
yeah.
ma'am.
Okay, great.
Sorry for that confusion.
No problem. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Landers. Oh, are you doing the audio?
I'm
Okay.
hanging around for one more.
Okay, so the 6.07 James Blair Middle School Audiovisual Systems purchase.
Yes, ma'am. This is requesting approval of purchasing technology and audiovisual items to support the classrooms, learning hubs, gym, and auditorium in James Blair Middle School. The items included in this purchase request include 3 learning hub projectors and audiovisual controls, projectors, microphones, and AV controls for the gym and the auditorium, 38 interactive flat panel mobile instructional cart systems for the classrooms, 4 wall-mounted interactive flat panel for instructional areas, 1 office AV system, and 2 digital signage systems that will be located in the common areas. The cost of these items is $370,947, which is included in the construction budget and will use an existing contract with Optech.
Questions for Mr. Landers on that?
So will these include those virtual panels with sort of thing that at the high school?
Virtual reality systems?
Yeah.
It's not included in this purchase. However, I believe there are some plans to try to include some of that capability.
I want to come and try.
Yeah. They're pretty neat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the flat panel AV instructional systems, is that like a smart board? Is that what they're talking about there?
Very similar, yes. It's not the Smartboard brand, but very similar, same capabilities.
Same
It is a
functionality.
75-inch flat panel on a mobile cart, can be moved around, has the touch capability to support multiple users at the same time.
3 learning hubs?
Yes.
How are those learning hubs, like, where are they going to be designated?
They're in the center of the classrooms on each floor, so on the
Okay,
first
so
floor
on
you
each.
have, I believe, either 6 or 8 classrooms surrounding, a learning hub, and then on each floor you
It's kind of
have,
like per grade level.
I
sort of.
believe so. Yeah.
Is that,
Correct.
okay. And any more extra detail on the background, like, it didn't say, like, you told us 3 learning hubs,
Yes.
but it doesn't say that on the background. You know, and you told us specific, like, how many flat panels. Just
Yes.
more detail
Okay.
for me, would be nice for next week, is that, this
Yes,
is
ma'am.
next week, right? That we're-
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
We can certainly add that.
Just,
I can add that to the
I
agenda
mean, even
item,
just
yes, ma'am.
for perpetuity or something, for like our documentation.
More
or
transparency.
Something.
Sure.
I will
Anything
get
else?
that added.
Anything else from Mr. Landers? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay. The next item on our agenda is 7.01, Equity Through Engagement, English Learner Summer Academy. Dr. Herron?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're pleased this evening to present the next in our Equity Through Engagement series, and this evening Ms. Ford is going to talk about the English Learner Summer Academy. That has, I believe, has been going on for 3 years now. This is one of the many ways that we're helping to meet the needs of students across our school community. Thank you, Ms. Ford.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Herron. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you this evening as part of the Equity Series presentations. On behalf of Matthew Whaley, James River, and Laurel Lane, I am honored to share information about the English Learner Summer Academy, which serves students and families whose primary language is Spanish. The English Learner Summer Academy provides summer learning experiences for primary-aged English learners and their families. In collaborative learning experiences, we address learning experiences for pre-K to grade 2 students for reading, writing, math, and vocabulary skills, adult education, particularly as it relates to homeschool partnerships, family health, and family literacy experiences. The Summer Academy originated with the realization that we needed to expand our English learners' opportunities with critical literacy and math skills. We also know that families are children's most influential teachers, and the families of our English learner students consistently attend learning-centered evening family events, including open house, back-to-school night, Partners in Print, parent-teacher conferences, and other programs. Therefore, we envisioned a new approach to learning that increases families' capacity to support student learning, fueled by strong relationships between home and school. The program is held in the evening to support families' transportation needs and to remove the possibility of conflict between the WJCC summer school program participation and the Summer Academy. The program is designed to reduce the challenges families may face to participating by including dinner, childcare, and interpreter support. Childcare for siblings is provided so adults may participate in the instructional sessions with their school-aged children. One staff member provides preschool activities for siblings enrolled in childcare to build a foundation for early literacy and numeracy skills. A Spanish-speaking interpreter is present at every session to support clear communication between staff and adult family members. Ms. Shana Walker, ESL teacher at Laurel Lane and one of the founding Summer Academy staff, captured the essence of our program. The EL Summer Academy program has been a unique opportunity to get to know not only our Spanish-speaking students, but also their parents on a multi-year basis. We are building a community with our L families and a familiarity with teachers that I feel has built trust. As Ms. Marian Markham, another founding Summer Academy staff member, reflected, many families have committed to our program every year to support their children's education. Participation in the program requires each student is accompanied by at least one adult family member who participates in nightly instruction, resulting in a 1:16 ratio of learners to each teacher. Though the number of students enrolled remains constant throughout the summer, the number of participating adults may be higher on any given evening. It is not unusual to have 2 parents or a parent and a grandparent seated with a child engaged in learning. As the table describes, the number of participating students has grown each year, as has the number of returning students. The mother and son shown in this picture have attended the Summer Academy every year since it began. Each night's session includes 3 learning components. The first 2 components run concurrently with different instructional foci for adults and children. Adults participate in lessons led by staff and volunteers from Literacy for Life. The focus for adult learning has been different each summer. During the first summer, lessons centered on helping families understand school processes and tools to help them navigate the school year and advocate for their children in partnership with school staff. Last summer, Literacy for Life staff adapted the health literacy curriculum known as HEAL to teach adults how to engage with healthcare processes, advocate for their family's health, and make decisions to support healthy lifestyles. While the adults learn together, students engage with technology to practice literacy and math skills on websites selected by their teachers. The third component of each evening session is the heart of the Summer Academy, the family instruction with students, adult family members, and teachers learning side by side. 3 mini lessons address reading, writing, math, and vocabulary strategies and skills. Each lesson includes teacher direct instruction and modeling, guided practice for students and adult family members, and independent student application of skills. Each experience provides the framework for families to learn how to best support their children's acquisition and practice of skills and vocabulary. Learning materials are carefully selected to purposefully engage all learners. The use of the materials is explicitly taught and modeled in each lesson to build adult family members' capacity to support student learning. At the conclusion of each session, every child, including those in childcare, takes home a book. The remaining learning materials go home at the conclusion of the academy to provide a toolkit to support continued practice of skills throughout the school year. We are very grateful for the partnerships we have forged between Literacy for Life and the Williamsburg Regional Library over the last 3 summers. The participation of their staffs in the Summer Academy have allowed us to extend our families' experiences to include community resources they can access to support learning. For the past 2 summers, we have partnered closely with the Youth Services staff at the Williamsburg Regional Library to engage students and families with hands-on opportunities to experience library services and resources. In this video clip, Sandy Towers, Youth Services Director at the Williamsburg Regional Library, discusses the collaboration between the library and the Summer Academy.
Robin contacted me and last summer was our second time collaborating with her and the ELL Academy. And last summer, she contacted us and wanted us to come out and give the families library cards, which we did. We brought the bookmobile out. We did some story times and modeling for the parents. We did some training on some of our language learning databases, and the kids and the families came for a tour of our library. So, and this was, a collaboration was really important to me because supporting English language learners is something that the library has wanted to do, but we don't necessarily have the expertise for that. So it was ideal for us because we could partner with the school and sort of support what you guys were doing with the English language learners and kind of riding on those coattails of your expertise, but allowing us to also raise awareness about the library and share, you know, our collections and services, which is definitely what we want to do. So it was perfect for us because we could collaborate with the schools.
addition to the nightly adult lessons led by Literacy for Life staff and volunteers, each summer the Adult Summer Academy participants take a field trip to the Literacy for Life site at the School of Education at the College of William and Mary. There they receive an orientation to the programs offered by Literacy for Life and tour their classrooms. Currently, we are enrolling students for the 2018 English Learner Summer Academy. In response to the growing number of ELL students at Clara Bird Baker, whose family's primary language is Spanish, we have opened the application process to Baker families. We will also continue to expand our partnerships with Literacy for Life and the Williamsburg Regional Library to engage our families with important community resources. In the next video, recorded at the conclusion of last summer's academy, a parent explains to Ms. Almendra Terrones, a Matthew Whaley teacher, how the summer academy has impacted her family.
Repaso pues de lo que ellos han aprendido y que le ponen interés y bueno, y que también dan la oportunidad de que les cuiden a los niños y a uno pues ponerle atención más a lo que dicen los maestros y ayudar a los niños, pues, a los hijos de uno.
Perfecto. También hubo programas para adultos. ¿Hay algo importante que usted cree que podemos tener para el próximo año? La sección de adultos.
Las reuniones. Bueno, lo bueno que a uno le vienen ayudando, ¿verdad? Cómo es que pueden hacer una cita con el doctor o en la situación de una emergencia, los 111. Y también, pues, dar, o sea, poder ayudar a alguien más, pues, en caso de una emergencia.
Entonces, ¿algo que usted regresaría el próximo verano para seguir aprendiendo con los adultos y los niños?
Sí, claro.
Ok, perfecto.
Madam Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Herron, thank you for the opportunity to share the English Learner Summer Academy program with you this evening. At this time, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Ford. Any questions for Ms. Ford?
Perfecto. It's great. It's great. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Zombie?
So we're now including students from Baker. The students at James River, are they also at Matthew Whaley site, or?
Yes, ma'am. It's
Okay.
held at one site.
Okay.
And so the families provide their own transportation. And we have families joining us from James River, Laurel Lane, and we do have students enrolled from Baker right now. And we're continuing our enrollment process.
Mr. Kelly?
Thank you for bringing this to us. It's a great story, a great service, and was something certainly well needed in our community. And for the minimal investment that it is, the rewards, the return that we get on this investment is immense. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Pretty amazing to be there amongst the families.
So what was the vision to start it?
A compilation of ideas that just came together, starting with the fact that every time our doors open, our families are there. They want to be involved. They want to know how to support their children. And the realization that it was up to us to recognize and identify what those barriers were and to do everything that we could to eliminate them, but within that sense of community and building that partnership with our families so that it was truly a collaborative effort and they understood that we value working with them side by side. And the side-by-side element just really comes from the Partners in Print model that if any of you have had children in kindergarten and first grade in some of our schools that do those evening events where really the heart of the lesson is not just teaching that child, but also empowering that parent to know how to skillfully guide that child when they're away from school.
I mean, the school literacy part for the adults, I think, was really a very important part of it, and so I just congratulate you and your staff for following through on that, and serving. You saw the need, you see where the thirst was out there, and you developed a program. I think that's outstanding. Thank you. Very nice.
Dr. Beers?
Yeah, I think the thing that really strikes you is that, you said it, is the parents really want to be there, and they want to bring their kids, and they want to learn, and they you want to take that spirit and see if we can, plug it in somewhere else with some other members of our, school community, because they really, I think the other thing that happens with that, and I know you see that, is children are far more adaptable in terms of learning the language. And in relatively short order, they start teaching their parents as well. So it's just win-win, and I'm so glad to see it. And it's also the collaboration with Literacy for Life and the library. You got to have books, you got to have stuff to read, but you have to have people, adults that are trained and know how to deal with that kind of thing. So it's great.
It makes the adults' value for education very visual for our children.
I like the collaboration with Literacy for Life and the library, just as Dr. Beers said, especially seeing how you're really not only improving the lives of the children, but the entire family, and making them feel more connected to our school system and to our community.
What's been very exciting is not only the adult education opportunities that our families have had during the summer academy, but as a result of the field trips and the orientation to the programs, Mrs. Peterson has reported that we have adult family members who then later during the school year have participated in some of the other programs that they offer. So, okay.
Well, I think it's amazing that they get to go on these field trips to the School of Education, because I think if you're learning a new language, sometimes it's intimidating, but to be able to go on a college campus kind of empowers you to the feeling that you can do it.
And we go together, so it's definitely, that takes some of the edge off, I think, for some families who are making their first visit there.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'd like to, the school division is, I think, is the largest part of our education ecosystem, but the library and Literacy for Life are critical pieces of it. So I'm thrilled to see that three-way partnership, and I'm glad that you forged that and made that happen, because I think we become greater than the sum of our parts when we do that. So thank you. I'm curious, is there a specific population within the EL population that you are targeting? Is it families who have, are not literate in their own in Spanish, or is there a particular subgroup within that larger population that you're targeting for this?
So this year, as we were identifying who we would reach out through the initial application period, we looked at identifying level 1 and level 2 students in their last year of preschool through students who are in second grade at the 4 sites that I mentioned. So we were starting with the students who have the furthest to go with their language learning opportunities. And then depending on the enrollment, we will layer on the next layer of students who have the greatest need in
Thank you.
regards to their language learning. Mm-hmm.
That's very helpful.
Another question. Do you feel that the community of English language learners know each other, or are they actually getting to know each other through this program? So are they already kind of familiar with each other in a English language, in a Spanish-speaking, for example, community here, or are they feeling like they're all by themselves, and so this helps them actually feel like they're not struggling through some of these assimilation challenges by themselves?
I can speak to the Matthew Whaley families. Many of our families live in a fairly small area of our school zone, so they know each other very well through their neighborhoods. They have very close relationships. Often the children play together, they care for each other's children, they support each other. obviously, when we come together during the summer, we're hoping to continue to expand that sense of community across the families from the sites that feed our program. And then we also try to find other opportunities to tap into community resources that are supporting families. For instance, year before last, we had an adult participant from CDR who had been active with some of the families, not just Matthew Whaley families, but families from James River, through her support of their children who were in CDR's program.
And then do you ever get Old Town Medical Center people involved? Okay.
Yes, we actually had them come out summer, not this past summer, because this past summer we had a health literacy focus for our entire curriculum. The summer prior to that, in supplementing what we were trying to communicate related to preparing your child for enrolling in school as related to the health requirements, but then also how to work with school staff in communicating your child's health needs. The Old Town staff came out and did a presentation. And one of our interpreters who's been very active in our program for the last 2 summers is a regular interpreter at Old Town as well. So she has an already established relationship with many of the mothers in particular who participate in our program.
That's great. Thank you.
Dr. Herron?
Just want to thank Ms. Ford for her vision in beginning this and taking it to a new level each year. I don't think we can ever underestimate the trust that has been built with families, and then the support that parents can now give to their students, in especially English learners who have a disadvantage and need all of the support that they can get. And this is just one of the many ways, of course, things that she does as an excellent principal. So thank you so much for presenting tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Ford. Thank you. Mr. Kelly's clapping for you, Ms. Ford. Excellent. Okay, that brings us to item 7.02, discussion of school resource officer program. I asked Dr. Herron to put this on the agenda just to circle back and follow up on the conversation that we had during the night that we adopted our budget request to the localities. And just to follow up from that, I, after touching base with you as my colleagues, sent a letter to City Council asking them that they consider passing a budget that included parity with the schools that are high schools and middle schools in James City County, to include a full-time SRO in each of the middle schools that will be open in the city in September. And the City Council met yesterday and discussed that topic, and the city manager has since sent communication to Dr. Herron. Dr. Herron, would you like to speak to what you learned from city manager today?
Yes, Madam Chair. Mr. Collins informed me of a discussion that City Council had, and their intent is to have a full-time SRO at each of the city middle schools, Berkeley Middle School and Blair Middle School. And so we're very excited and appreciative of their support in this area.
Anyway, we just, in the interest of transparency and following up and making sure that that was as part of our meeting and, announced publicly. So I don't know if anyone has any questions or comments about that, but I just wanted to make sure that was out there.
Well, the one thing that, and I'm not sure if Dr. Herron's prepared to talk about this, is what is the purpose and intent of the SRO program?
I think the intent is for the SROs, they are community police officers who come into our schools to build relationships with students and show the positive side of law enforcement. If they build good relationships in school, then they take them out into the community as well. So their main function is really that community role, not a protection role, although sometimes they obviously can play that role if needed.
Anything else on that? Okay, great.
Oh,
yes.
During our last conversation, we were talking about that we did not want to include more security officers in the budget because of best practices. So is it possible that we can, I've been looking online, and again, I don't know about how factual some of the information is online about best practices for school security and emergency preparedness planning, but there are several sites, and different information is on each of those sites. Would it be possible to have more information on what our school division considers best practice? in securing the safety of our students.
I think at the last discussion, we asked staff to look into that and
Right.
kind of come back with a recommendation. And I think we mentioned, I can't remember, Mr. Kelly, if we did or not, that at the next school liaison meeting.
Right.
Yes, sir. Did we mention that the police chief of each locality will be there? So I think that this is a topic that is ongoing and will definitely come back to.
Because I'm going to keep coming back to it, because I really am, it's a hot topic for me, obviously. But I would really like to know, for example, I noticed on here that for training of schools, there was which had mixed reviews, there was a program called ALICE that helped schools define what needed to happen during a lockdown and how to prepare our students. But I would really like, once we've met, once the liaison committee has met with the police officials, if they could maybe expand what they believe would be the best practices for our schools, because I want our schools to be safe for our students.
Madam Chair, I think a few years ago, we had a security survey done with our schools, and that's where we came to the vestibules, and there were some other initiatives that were a part of that. So we might just want to dust that off and see if, I think it was Mr. Weaver, but I don't know, that where we had looked at what best practices then, and just as you prepare for the next meeting, maybe that's just or whenever we discuss that, just dust that off and see if that's still, if the security protocols have changed due to recent events.
I think the other thing related to that is, maybe there wouldn't be the SROs, but are there police officials that make presentations at our various schools to parents and teachers so that they're kept abreast of how what they would do, how they deal with those things, so they're so the parents and teachers are aware of what that is? Maybe they do. They may do that. I'm just.
We certainly do have ongoing drills in every single school, and we work in partnership with law enforcement who conduct the drills, give feedback to schools on a regular basis. Obviously, we don't talk in detail about that in a public forum because it actually impacts the security of our students. So I will bring some generic information back. We
That's
certainly
fine.
wouldn't.
Yeah, that's all. That's all.
Yeah, that would be.
And then secondly, along that topic is, we also have security in our buildings, in our high schools. What training do those individuals receive?
We can certainly provide that for you as well.
Thank you. That could be generic if it's brought to the board, but I'd like more specific personally, so I can come and talk to you.
Else? Right, that brings us to the policy section of our meeting, and item 8.01, revise and recode policy JIHA, search and seizure, to policy JFG, search and seizure. And this has been to us before and then sent back for some clarification with the attorneys, if memory serves. So does that right, policy committee and Ms. Bourgeois and Dr. Heron? Okay, whoever, take it, go.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Heron. Yes, we brought this to you last month, and there was a question about parent notification. So if you look at line 86 and 87, we did, with input from our attorneys, add a sentence that says a school official will attempt to contact the parent or guardian by the end of the next school day after a pat-down search occurs.
Questions?
Well, and I just wanted to share that language is consistent with existing policy with restraint and seclusion.
Correct.
Yes. Okay. Right, great. Thank you. So that brings us to item 8.02, revised policy GBI, staff gifts and solicitations.
Mr. Baker?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Heron. Policy GBI, staff gifts and solicitation. This policy was adopted in 2006. We can just consider this policy as part of our normal review process, not because any issues have come up. As we reviewed it with our attorney, we decided to make an emphasis with a slight change in the policy to personal gain versus personal use. And that was suggested by our attorney, and it also was reviewed by our policy committee.
questions for Policy Committee or Mr. Baker? All right.
Next policy we had reviewed was policy GBO, the Virginia Retirement System. This policy was adopted in 2008. It does correspond with VSBA policy GBO. Again, we considered this as part of our normal review process. The attorney reviewed it, the policy committee reviewed it, and we actually have no recommended changes.
Any questions?
So the question I have, so school division employees who are eligible to be automatically enrolled, is there an option not to enroll?
They cannot opt out.
So should we say that? Because when you say they're automatically enrolled, I don't know, maybe I just read it, there's an implication that I can choose to not be automatically enrolled.
I read it as you're going to be automatically
Be
enrolled.
Yeah. I mean,
Automatically, like.
Yeah, I mean, we automatically enroll people in our 401K too, but they can opt out of it.
Part of automatic. Part of restate.
We're giving him a hard time.
Wait, come on, he does
I mean,
this all
do
the
you-
time, so I'm not gonna.
Do you want it to go back, or?
No.
Okay, thank you. So we're okay with automatic. Okay,
The last policy I have is policy GCBCA, the Employee Assistance Program. This policy was originally adopted in 1983. It was revised and reviewed in 2012. There is no VSBA policy GCBCA. We consider this as part of our normal review, not because any issues has come up. I have given you a pamphlet that all our new employees and our employees get about our Employee Assistance Program. Our Employee Assistance Program is run through Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield. It's actually set up at an aggregate data level, how we get the information back from them, not down to the individual level of us. Traditionally, EAP programs don't get a huge participation. I think actually it's less than like 6%. But ours, there's a lot of benefit to it. We do have a lot of folks, I think we're glad we have it. Our Employee Assistance Program is confidential with our employees. It supports them. It's a referral service offering tools and resources to our employees and their household members at no additional cost to them. So it's things like child care and parenting, helping aging parents, financial issues, legal concerns, work and careers, emotional and well-being, addiction recovery, wellness and prevention. They have other concierge-type services and life events. Our attorney has reviewed it, the policy committee reviewed it, and we have no recommended changes.
questions? So I have a question. Why do we have a I'm not questioning why we have an EAP, because they're great and underutilized, because they are wonderful and should be used by more people. But why do we have a policy if the VSBA doesn't?
We don't have to. You could remove it. Sometimes when people remove it, they might think we're trying to eventually eliminate the EAP policy, and we're not. So.
But there's no, I always go back to the research policy that we have, where the VSBA doesn't have one of those, but we do because we have a university in our backyard. So, there's no compelling reason for us to have this. We just, okay. All right.
If you want to take that as to VSBA to tell them to have a policy, you should.
Thank you for the suggestion.
Just thought I'd throw my 2 cents in there.
Any other
Madam
questions?
Chair.
Any other questions about that? All right, thank you. Okay. All right, then we get into retire policy EGAFA, cellular and personal communication services telephone usage.
I think Mr. Landers has the next two policies. Thank you, Mr. Landers.
Good evening again. We are recommending retirement of policy EGAFA. There is no corresponding VSBA policy. Elements of the intent of this policy are covered in board policy EDC, authorized use of school-owned materials, as well as policy IIBEA/GAB, the acceptable computer system and network resource use policy, as well as in practice through our portable device agreement form. The division attorney has reviewed this policy and supports it being retired.
Any questions about EGAFA? Okay. On to the next one.
The next policy is policy IIBEA/GAB, otherwise known as our acceptable use policy. The recommended changes primarily are formatting edits to maintain consistency with other policies. We did conduct a review to ensure an alignment with the Children's Internet Protection Act. The attorney recommended a language change to provide for the current method through which the superintendent certifies with the Department of Education that we have this policy. And again, the attorney has reviewed and approved these recommendations.
Questions? Okay. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Landers. That brings us to new policy, IGAK, Alternatives to Animal Dissection.
I believe Mr. Paula has the next two policies. Thank you, Mr. Paula.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Herron. Last but not least, I'm bringing forward two policies this evening. The first one, policy IGAK, is Alternatives to Animal Dissection, and it is, as Dr. Herron said, a new policy. We've always provided alternative activities for students that did not wish to participate in animal dissection, and this policy will keep us aligned with VSBA policy. Students that participate in courses in which animal dissection is part of the curriculum will receive notification of the availability of alternative options. These can include online simulations, they can be videos, they can be models. We have a variety of options for students, and then we have an opt-out form available at each of the schools. This policy will bring us in alignment with VSBA, and Council has reviewed and approved the addition of this policy.
Any questions? Okay.
Okay. The second policy I bring tonight is policy IBE, Instructional Television. We're seeking to retire this policy. It was adopted in 1974, revised in 1984, and reviewed in 2001. There are no other policies that address the use of any other form of media in the classroom. And also, there's no longer need to contract instructional television services, as these are provided free for education institutions. For that reason, there's no corresponding VSBA. Council has reviewed and supports, and we are asking to retire this policy.
Dr. Beers is our representative on Aharita. Are you okay with this?
I'm wonderfully fine.
Any
Does that mean we don't have the big Catherine Ray tube thing? either?
Any questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Paula. All right, so all of these policies will be bundled and move over to our consent agenda at the next meeting. And I just want to thank staff and the policy committee. This is a heavy lift, so, but I'm excited to see us getting through them and appreciate the effort behind that. That brings us to our action item of the evening, personnel actions, item 9.01. May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, I move approval of the personnel actions as presented this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Young. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Thursday, will you call the roll, please?
Ms. Hummel.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Ms. Ownby.
Aye.
Mrs. Taylor.
Aye.
Mrs. Young.
Aye.
Dr. Beers.
Aye.
Ms. Cook.
Aye. Great. Motion passes, and that brings us to item 10.01, board member comments. Mr. Kelly?
Not a whole lot. I did participate in the National School Board Association conference over the weekend, and there was many great sessions, a lot of learning, a lot of sessions that are very appropriate for the issues of the day. We approach school security, equity. So I look forward to sharing that with some of my colleagues who could not attend. So it was well worth the trip.
Young?
I don't have much to say either. I'm just looking very forward to the school plays that are going to be performed starting this on the 12th. The first one that's going to be presented, for those, I wrote it down, for those people that are interested. The first one is Big Fish, I believe.
Yep.
And it's at Jamestown High School, and the performances are on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and there's a matinee on Saturday. So everyone that I've attended, I've been totally impressed with and enjoyed, so I would encourage the community, and there's always a lot of community members there, to come out and see these students who are amazing.
Taylor?
I do have something. Yay, surprising. I was able to attend a student advisory committee meeting on March 28th with Dr. Heron and Ms. Ownby. We talked about school food, which is always a hot topic. The students talked about trying to bring back the salad bars. I know Ms. Cook will enjoy that.
For that, yeah.
And some of their favorites include the hamburger, steak, and mashed potatoes. So that was an interesting conversation. And we also talked about school safety with them, and they were very insightful and provided some good information about social and emotional health of their classmates and ways to improve that, and programs they already have in place, like Rambassadors, Lafayette, and things that we could maybe do at other schools to help out. So that's always a great experience. I'm looking forward to the next one.
Thank you. Dr. Beers?
Yeah, I would also encourage everybody and anybody to attend the musicals put on by our 3 high schools. We have incredible talent. The musicians, the actors, actresses. Every year, you're not quite sure how they're going to top what they've done in the past. I never thought they were going to top Singing in the Rain, but they have. I mean, they're phenomenal, and I applaud the students and also those who help and direct and prepare them for that. The only other thing I would remind citizens, parents especially, to select one of those 3 strategic planning parent forums. One tomorrow night at Jamestown, 6 o'clock, and then there are 2 in 2 different high schools on Thursday, also at 6 o'clock. I'm sorry, one of them is at James City County Rec Center, and the other one is at the Lafayette High School. So I would encourage parents to attend one of those. That's it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's
Are
okay.
you done, Dr. Beers? Okay. So-
For those that weren't like writing down all of that information, just go to the WJCC website, and on the main page on the right-hand side, you'll see all the dates and times of the strategic planning meetings. I am looking forward to hearing my colleagues that did attend the National School Board Association this past week and hear kind of their lessons learned. And I wanted to also kind of say that there was a conscious decision vote last year for budgetary reasons exclusively, that we would limit the number of school board members that participated in, and I think we should maybe revisit that now that our maybe the budget isn't quite so tight, and that the National School Board Association meeting will be in Philadelphia next year. So I would kind of encourage all of us to attend, because I think we're a better board the more we're educated on the different issues.
Zombie?
And just to echo that, I feel very grateful that I was able to attend the National School Board Association meeting, and am eager to share my notes. Went to multiple sessions about community engagement, student engagement, future trends in career and technical readiness, rethinking high school. And so we'll definitely share my notes. I was glad that I got to attend the Student Advisory Committee meeting with Holly. I do miss that committee, and I'm always impressed with the professionalism that our students bring and the thoughtfulness that they share with us. Attended a SEAC meeting a few weeks ago, and they received information and a presentation about transition services. So just understanding how that impacts students who have an IEP beginning at age 14, kind of planning for their post-secondary options, and encourage any of my board members to attend a SEAC meeting with me. The next one is this Thursday at 6:30 at the Rec Center. So if anyone would like to attend and learn more about SEAC, would encourage you to do that. The exceptional games that were started last year at Jamestown High School are scheduled to have this year's game on June 7th. I don't have any more details. I'm sure they'll come to light at some point, but people can mark their calendar for that as well.
Thank you. I would like to concur with the comments about the budget as it pertains to professional development for the board. This year was a wonderful conference, as they all are, and for every session I attended, there were 2 or 3 others that I would have liked to attend. So I think the more of us that are there, we can kind of spread the wealth and the professional learning, and we're really good about sharing our notes with each other. And so I think that it would be great if as many board members who are able could go to Philadelphia next year, and if we could, include that in the budget discussion when it comes back to us. I would like to know what happened to the salad bars. I didn't know they were gone. And then,
Students weren't eating them.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Underutilized, but the intention is to revitalize and try again.
Great.
With the ice cream money there.
Of course, some word making a salad from other things.
And then, also, I just wanted to comment on the budget requests that we adopted at our last meeting. Since then, the county administrator and the city manager have announced their proposals to their boards, and they include a recommendation to fully fund Dr. Herron's proposed budget, which I just am thankful for. That we talked about at length and justified making a serious investment in our staff, re-benchmarking some critically important positions, and giving a raise that in the amount that our staff and teachers haven't seen in a long, long time. And so I'm very grateful to Mr. Collins and Mr. Porter for supporting that work, because I think it's critical investment in our children, and I'm grateful for that. So I just wanted to say that, and I hope everyone out there listening decides to pick up the phone and call their elected officials to advocate for adopting their recommendations. Is there anything else?
I just wanted to say thank you to the Williamsburg City Council for funding the SROs.
Definitely.
At both middle schools.
Yeah. Agreed. All right, with that, upcoming events, the Special Education Advisory Committee, otherwise known as SEAC, is meeting on the 12th of April at 6:30 p.m. in the James City County Community Center. The Policy Committee is meeting on April 25th at 8:15 a.m. Here in the annex at Central Office. The 21st Century and Career Ready Advisory Committee is meeting also on April 25th at 3:30 p.m. here in the annex at the school board and central office. And the Teacher of the Year reception is that's a busy day, on April 25th at 5:15 in the Matoka Woods room of the William Mary School of Education. That's a really wonderful celebration of teaching excellence. And then upcoming meetings, we have a closed session next Tuesday, April 17th at 6 p.m. In Building F on Mounts Bay Road in the county, followed by a regular session at 6:30 in the boardroom. And then in May, our first meeting is a closed session on May 8th at 6 p.m. here in the annex at the school board central office, followed at 6:30 by work session and action items here in the annex. And we're to set the agenda items for the next regular meeting. We talked about policies, and then we have a few grant applications and some bids that are coming forward, and we've discussed all those. In addition to that, we'll have a school spotlight, but there's nothing else. Is that correct, Dr. Herron?
That's correct, Madam Chair.
All right, with that, this meeting is adjourned.